Welcome to this special episode of the Craft Industry Alliance podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Craft Industry Alliance is a community for craft professionals where you can strengthen your creative business, stay up to date on industry news, and build connections within our supportive trade association. Check it out at craftindustrｙalliance.org. Today, we have the first of two special episodes celebrating the winners of the 2024 Golden Scissors Awards. This year, for the first time, Craft Industry Alliance was honored to launch the Golden Scissors Awards, which aim to honor excellence in the crafts industry. There are 5 categories for these awards: Emerging Leader, Sustainability, Innovation, Social Impact, and Lifetime Achievement. Winners were honored live on stage at H&H Americas in Chicago. We couldn't have done all of this without our incredible sponsors: Spoon Flour, Jimmy Bean's Wool, Universal Yarn, and Famore. Famore also provided the prizes for each award: a beautiful custom-engraved pair of golden scissors, which the winners received on stage. 4 of our 5 winners were available for interviews on this podcast, and we're very excited to share those with you. These interviews are so inspiring, and we hope you enjoy them. In this first set, we're talking to Elizabeth Okeyele, winner of the Emerging Leader Award, and Ali Pate, winner of the Sustainability Award. We hope you enjoy hearing from each of them. Here's Elizabeth. Hi, Elizabeth. So nice to see you again.
Thank you, Abby. The pleasure is all mine. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's great to see you. We were together in Chicago at H&H Americas, where you won the Emerging Leader Award as part of our Golden Scissors Awards. Congratulations to you. And not only that, but you came all the way to Chicago from Nigeria to accept the award. And that was so touching. People in the room, and there were a lot of people in that room. I feel like there was close to 800 people there, but I saw a number of people with tears in their eyes when you came up.
Oh. Thank you, Abby. You know, when I was in Chicago, I was waiting for someone to wake me up and say, Elizabeth, you are dreaming. It's a dream. And it's real, and it's so much exciting. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and also for bringing up such initiative as the Golden Scissors Award, where people who had worked so hard in their craft get recognized. It's such an amazing opportunity to be spotlighted. My work for years being brought to the fore, and then people are like, you got recognition and came all the way from Nigeria to the US for your award. It's amazing. I can say very few people have had such opportunity, and I am so grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about all that work that you've been doing that earned you this beautiful award, the Emerging Leader Award. So you have a business, a mission, really, to bring crochet to young people and knitting to young people in Nigeria and also even outside of Nigeria. So talk a little bit about how you even learned to knit and why this is so important to you to spread this mission.
Yes, I learned how to knit at age 7, and I learned with a broomstick, and I didn't have a knitting teacher who helped me do it right. So fast forward to when I started Tunizze Creation, my goal was to help children learn how to knit the right way. And that includes knowing exactly the versatility of materials and also the techniques and the names for each of the stitches. So I wanted to actually do it right, and I started. But I found out that there was so much to be done in terms of some people didn't even know how to differentiate between what was the differences between knitting and crochet. So there was so much education to be done. And I said to myself, if we want a skill to outlive generations, the best people to place these skills in their hands are children. And that's what brought about the mission, to pass on needlecraft skills to children, teach them to think using their hands. We say changing the world of children, changing their world, thinking with the hands, changing their world with yarn. And I said, we have a lot of Nigerian children who have been enjoying my classes. I taught in places like Lagos, Abuja, which is like the capital of Nigeria, Ogun State as well, and some couple other northern states across Nigeria. So I said, how is this knitting with children in Africa? Then I decided to try Kenya. I found out that a lot of children didn't even know how to knit. And so in 2023, I was able to work with some local volunteers in Nairobi, and we had to go to certain homes, certain children homes, and empower them with the gift of knitting. So I'm currently working for Botswana in August for this year, and I noticed that some people don't even know what we call knitting in Botswana. Can you beat that?
So they don't even
So
know what like knitting is, basically, is what you're saying.
exactly. I'm
Okay.
trying to get information from the yarn store to say, oh, can I get volunteers? Can you help me set up meetings with children homes? I'll go. And they say, oh, we don't knit. We only crochet.
Oh,
So
okay.
from that feedback, you can agree with me that there's so much work to do. So my goal is to start the fire, keep spreading with children until we have a lot of people working with their hands, children in particular across Africa.
Right. That's wonderful. Okay. And so you said you learned how to knit with broomsticks. Did you learn in school? Was this like a class in school or an activity? How did you, like, where was this that you learned with broomsticks?
My classmates, they just brought the activity with the broomstick and they were knitting. We didn't know how to cast off. So it was just basically a garter stitch and that was it.
I see.
And so because we couldn't progress to the point of reading patterns, we didn't have a teacher who could do it right with us. I had to drop knitting and I did crochet until I now
I
picked
see.
it up after my national youth service as a business to teach children right with my textile background.
Right, right. Okay. And so what is your background in textiles? Talk a little bit about that piece.
All right. So I actually started with a national diploma in textile technology where we do the machine knitting and we talk about yarn, how yarns are produced from the fiber to the sliver to the carding, the machines involved until it becomes thread. Then we also look at the weaving part, the weaving techniques, the traditional weaving, the machine weaving. And we also looked at the surface design as well. And that's where the polymer comes in, the artificial fiber comes in. Then I also went further with my industrial training and also did higher national diploma in textile as well. So it was basically the machine part without much information about the hand part. So my
Okay.
job is like a middle ground between the machine and the hand part and the knowledge to pass it on to children.
Right, right. Okay. And so when it comes to Tunizze Crochet Creation, you have a Facebook page that people can go to follow along with what you're doing. And are you like, how are you getting the yarn and the patterns and the needles or the hooks that you're using to work with children? Are those donated? Are you buying those? Are you working with local producers, or how are you sourcing the materials?
All right. So when I started my work, I found out that it was important to get the yarn company as part of the movement as well. So I volunteered and approached the yarn factory and said, I was going to freelance for you and work with you in labeling your yarn. And they had limitation because it was only acrylic. They were importing the fiber in and spinning only in Nigeria. It's not like the acrylic yarn fibers are produced here. They are imported in and spun into yarns in Nigeria. And it was really very thin. The children could not work with it. So I said to the
Oh,
factory owner, let us make it into a size 4 yarn that it is easy for children to work with. And luckily, Mr. Alpha bought into the idea because the yarn is currently selling in the market. And he said, oh, that's fine. So we worked together to build the colors that are catching to children. And that yarn is readily available in the Nigerian market. So it's not just about starting the fire. It's about making the materials readily available for children to go to the store in the local market in Nigeria and buy these yarns at also cheaper rates as well. So we
right.
have that going on. Then for the tools, we currently are not producing any knitting pins or knitting hooks in Nigeria or crochet hooks in Nigeria. So the bulk of our hooks coming in are from the China market, from the US market as well. We have them coming. Then we have some other couple of needle industries as well in India that I work in close partnership with Pony Needles. They have a representative in Nigeria who stock the knitting pins in her shop. So I buy from her as well. And we have a couple of donations coming in here and there. And the children can actually improvise with their pencils as well.
Oh, right. Right, exactly. So, as you work with children in these different communities, what have you learned from working with children? I know you did an article for us a little while ago about effective ways to teach these crafts to kids. But in your experience, like what stands out to you as successful in working with young people and as sort of not as successful?
All right. Now, my idea for success is seeing a child smile, when they are able to do something themselves on their own. Now, I think that sparkle is what has actually kept me in the business of passing on needlecraft skills to children all these years. It's a unique kind of sparkle. When a child has worked on a project over time and is able to see it to completion, that is what I consider success. Now, all successful for me means there are many children in Africa who still have not gotten this opportunity to create. And our continent is such that we're not so blessed with a lot of opportunities like we have in the US, like we have in Europe. So something as cheap as a ball of yarn and something that is easily affordable like a pair of knitting pin, it's a gift to every African child because it gives them the wildest opportunity and a window of opportunity to create. And so unsuccessful means not giving as many children as possible the opportunity to knit. Why success for me mean that glow, that sparkle on the eyes of a child when they are able to carry on what they've done themselves. I think that is priceless, Abby.
Absolutely. I think we can all relate to that feeling. Anyone who's taught a child to craft and make something on their own, and as you said, see it through to completion, and they have that sense of pride. It's such a beautiful thing to witness, and it just really makes you want to do it more and more. So that's super lovely. So, and I know you've written a book as well. So tell us a little bit about your book.
All right. So I saw that the patterns we had were basically patterns from the United States with the yarns, like yarns made from Rowan, like yarns made from Lion Brand. We didn't have a knitting book that was written by a made in Nigeria yarn, where a child could see the pattern that is simple and say, oh, I bought this yarn from the Nigerian market and I can make this out of it. So that's basically the idea for the knitting book. It's called Knitting ABC Book, 22 Patterns for the Young to Explore. So and it's made with our local made in Nigeria yarn, for children to be able to follow through with the simple patterns. So it's things that they basically can see around themselves and make simple projects like a garter stitch scarf, like a bow, like a small chicken knitted toy, like small balls. And we have also strip pillows, and the list goes on and on. And I also give everyone the opportunity to also add their creativity as well. So the list goes on and on in trying to make it possible for them to create, make, and do.
Right. I love that. So it's written by a native person from Nigeria using the materials that you've actually introduced into the market so that where these children live, they're able to actually buy what they need and then see what to do with it right there, instead of sort of having to cobble together something that maybe would work, or maybe the materials aren't quite right, and maybe it won't end up, becoming successful. And then you feel so unmotivated when you can't finish something and you wanted it to be something and it never was able to be that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also a pattern explained from the view of an African, a pattern explained from the view of a Nigerian. Why we say we're copying from the Western world, we also need to localize these things that we're doing, make them in such a way that everyone in our community finds it easy to relate to the textile terminologies or the textile jargons or the knitting jargons or the knitting lingos in the book.
Right. That's wonderful. Okay. So when you came to the U.S. And you went to H&H Americas, you were there, you were working in our booth, you had a bunch of different sessions and meetings with people. What were some of the things that sort of stood out to you or struck you as interesting from your trip to Chicago?
It's the community. Apart from the fact that Chicago is a beautiful place, I fell in love with the tulips flower. And I'll never forget that about my timing for the H&H. And I think I look forward to coming back again in 2025 and also subsequent years as well. So it's the community in the crafters. It was this moment when everyone sat in the hall, Abby, and they were knitting and crocheting and listening to the keynote speakers. It was amazing. Then also the moment for me was when one of the key speakers said, now is the time we have to move our craft to the younger generation. And I screamed, this is the moment. Yes, exactly. I'm like, oh no, they are in the future, because I had already predicted that sometime, the world is going to know that those who are going to seize the crafting market are the younger generation. They have a lot of times in their hand to create. And so when one of the keynote speakers said, now is the time, I was like, beautiful, this is the moment. So I am happy that a lot of manufacturers for the yarn and the knitting piece as well, and the crochet hooks and all the notions for knitting and crocheting are saying, we can make our tools children friendly. We can make our yarns children friendly. We can make our items young children, young minded friendly. Now, see the yarn consumer trend that you put together. It says the yarn consumer market for those who are below 18, they use the bulk of their disposable income to buy yarn.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
So
That
I was
was,
like,
from the study. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm saying if all of these factories can target young people, it will be nice and it will be a big boost for them. And what more? They don't even need so much convincing. I take new balls of yarn. I had some free samples given to me at the H&H. I like the glow in the dark yarn, Abby, that was made by Lion Band. And I take part of the glow in the dark yarn and I'm like, there is a glow in the dark yarn. And everyone in my class is literally screaming. So we are looking at innovation that is with the goal to get to the mind of younger people and the power they have to create. I'm sure the future will be awe-inspiring. The future will be marvelous, where we can empower and equip our younger ones with the right crafting skills.
Right. And do you feel like there is a market for craft materials, yarn and needles and hooks in particular, but maybe craft materials in general in Africa that maybe some American and European companies don't realize that this is an untapped market and a future market for their companies?
Yes, because there's so much unemployment here. There's lesser things to do. Unlike the European and the Europe and the Africa US, where there's so much to do, we have fewer opportunities here. So there's so many. There's time to make. There's time to do. So if the companies can come, if they can see into the future, invest into the market, of course, it's going to reap bountifully in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell us a little bit about what's coming up for you. What do you have planned in the coming months? What's coming up for Tunizze Creation?
All right, so I'll be going to Abuja. Abuja is Nigerian capital. I was there in 2018 to speak to some couple of girls, so I'll be going back again to meet with them. I'll be doing trainer workshop for teachers. I'll be visiting a couple of also we have something like a ShopRite as well in Nigeria. I'm saying the yarn companies should put their yarn in those ShopRite, in those shopping mall where kids can shop. So we want this product to show up in such places where the children can say, oh, I learned how to knit in school. I can buy my yarn from the shopping mall to continue. So I'll be doing a couple of such presentations in the Nigeria's capital in Abuja. Then also in August, I'll be going to Botswana. So I have a couple of companies who wants to give me yarn. No, not yarn. Who wants to give me knitting pins as well and crochet pins for that outreach. So I'm actually at the moment looking for more sponsors who believe in the African market, who want to invest in the African market, who see it as a long-term game, Abby. Most of the companies actually want numbers. So I say when it comes to the younger generation, you have to play the long-time game because, if you empower them, if you give them the right skills, they are definitely going to come to you in the future, now and in the future, to buy more supplies from you. So
Right.
We're looking at companies who want to play the long-time games, those who want to invest in the future, invest in young people learning these skills, empowering them, teaching them what to make and do with them. Such ones, we keep running programs together. I want collaborations. I want community with such ones, and together we can take the whole world.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So good. So if companies are listening to this, or even individuals, and they want to work with you or learn from you, have you come and teach a session about the African market, about teaching African children, about what you're doing, or just collaborate with you in different ways, how should they reach out to you? What is the best way?
So my Facebook is actually very active. That's www.facebook.com/Tunizze Creation. You send me a DM, and I'm here to see that. And I saw, the H&H blew my mind, Abby. The things made with yarn, they are so damn beautiful.
Yeah, it's so true. There were some really beautiful pieces to see, and it was really inspiring and wonderful. And I think people were really inspired that you were there. I feel like your presence was also an inspiration to others too. So
Thank you.
it was lovely. Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
now,
good.
do you know what I was thinking, Abby? Imagine children get to see that.
Right.
Wouldn't
Yeah.
that blow their mind? Yes, exactly. So I'm saying that everyone should look at the children, the younger generation, and invest in them. And crafting is a fantastic way for them to form community and fantastic way for them to heal. I have children who sign up for my class just to talk and crochet and knit.
Sure.
Just
I
that.
mean, a big part of crafting is community and is the conversations that we have with one another, especially with adults, two children, maybe adults who aren't their parents, but are another trusted adult in the community who can talk with, young people as they're growing up and share their perspective and advice. And I feel like when our hands are occupied, a lot of interesting conversation happens.
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
yeah, absolutely. Well, Elizabeth, it's been wonderful talking to you, wonderful getting to know you in person as well as online. We love having you as a Craft Industry Alliance member. You're such an active and supportive and positive presence. So we just so appreciate you being part of this community.
Thank you so much, Abby. There's so much light in your eyes and you radiate so much loving positivity, which I'm happy to be a part. Well done.
Thank you. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Abby.
And here's Allie. Hi, Allie. So tell us a little bit about your business, Road Trip Sock Yarn. And I know that you won the Sustainability Award for the Golden Scissors Award, the inaugural Golden Scissors Award this year, which is so exciting. And so I would love to hear not just about what is Road Trip Sock Yarn, but also how you've worked sustainability into this business, because you've really done a remarkable job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you today. So Road Trip Sock Yarn, I'm an indie dyer. I'm a one-person show. I've got some great friends that help me with things along the way, but I work from a home studio, and I've been in business for about 5 years now. And I was dyeing and I caught a really good groove, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great, but I think I can do better. And I started really small with ways that I thought I could improve, things like reusable zip ties and better rubber gloves, and using old t-shirts and fabrics to clean up big spills. And it just has progressed from there. And it was very, very much self-motivated. I want to do better. And I truly think that each and every step towards better is positive. So I did the things that I could and just kept building on those because it felt good too.
So how did you become an indie dyer? Were you a knitter first, or were you a crocheter first, or how did you get introduced to indie dyeing?
Sure. So my background is in fiber arts. I have an undergrad and a master's, both in art. My undergrad studies concentration was in ceramics with a minor in fibers, and then my master's concentration was in fibers with a minor in printmaking. So I was doing crochet, and I've crocheted as long as I can remember. I was a very fidgety kid, and I think they weren't really sure what to do with me. So I had a giant crochet hook and some carpet rags, and I very clearly remember sitting on the floor with this whole body motion learning how to crochet. So I took that skill set all the way into the university setting and did my thesis in contemporary crochet. And I continued to produce artwork all the way until I was dying, like artwork for exhibition, all the way until I started dying. And I was working another job, and I realized I needed to make some big changes. And I sat down with my pen and paper and marked off my skill set. And because I had the undergrad and the master's, I knew a little bit about a lot of different fiber arts and a lot of art techniques in general. So I was making the list, like, what can I do? What can I do? And the dyeing came up, and like, well, I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to try this. And I invested a very small amount of money. I'm talking like maybe a couple $100 in materials and tools. It's like, well, let's see how this goes. And within 6 months, I trademarked and was like, all right, we're doing it.
And I want to go back to the thesis.
Yeah.
momentarily on contemporary crochet because that's a very cool thesis topic. So what is that? What did that entail exactly?
So my body of work and my exhibition was looking at the viewer's interpretation of line, whether it was the actual crochet itself or the spaces in between the crochet. So it was a play in all black and white and engaging the viewer and the audience in the crochet pieces themselves.
Oh,
So
wow. That's super cool.
thanks. I can
Yeah,
send
very
pictures.
cool. Yeah, I love a picture. That's really neat. Okay, so you kind of got started with a small investment and then realized I really love doing this. And so what did the business, consist of and what kind of materials were you using, and packaging and just dye materials and things like that when you first started? And I'm wondering how that's kind of evolved and changed. You talked about like reusable zip ties and starting small. So take us back to the early days, maybe 5 years ago or whatever it was, when you were sort of beginning this indie dye business.
Sure. Yeah. So I was purchasing smaller quantities of yarn, of course. I knew that I needed to use the stainless steel pans or a particular type of pan, but I started with three dye colors and I mixed from the red, blue, and yellow, and I was mixing all of my colors that way. And so it was a lot of process learning on those early skeins. Superwash, non-superwash, really having an understanding for how those fibers were going to collect the dyes, where that heat, the sweet spot on the heat would be. But everything was very, very small scale. I think my very first batch of yarns that went anyplace, there were 50 skeins total, and each and every single skein was dyed individually. I was doing one skein in a pan, one pan at a time, and I was really working that way. And things quickly changed. So, and part of the process of doing better, I was thinking about, buying in bulk when I realized like this is going to be my thing. I really this is where it's at for me. I started to increase all of the volumes, and I was thinking about reducing the carbon footprint, how I could buy in, if I could make the investment in bulk, that I could just get all of the things there. That's just one trip. I don't need to have 50 trips coming with each of the things.
Right.
My mindset changed very quickly in that as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think a lot of us don't necessarily think about buying in bulk as a sustainability step. But if you're going to use all of those materials, obviously, if you're not, no. But if you're going to use all of those materials, then
Mhm.
having that single trip
Mhm.
does make more sense than either you driving back and forth to a retail store or ordering very tiny amounts and having it delivered, every other week or something like that. So that's kind of an interesting first step.
Yeah, and those bigger boxes are a whole heck of a lot easier to reuse too. So that was very helpful in that sense as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what about the packaging, shipping and packaging? Because, so many of us, we get something from Amazon or whatever, and it comes in that white and blue bubble mailer, and you're just like, oh gosh, I ordered just this one little thing and like this huge bubble mailer that can't be recycled. And it's like such a, I don't know, it stresses me out personally when that happens. And so I think packaging and shipping supplies are sort of a first area a lot of people turn to increase sustainability in their business.
Sure. And you're right. That there's that wah moment where it's like, oh, doggone it. But trying to do better and being aware of a better way to do, like that is also incredibly important. And just acknowledging like, oh, well, this is something that we could do better is a great way to get started with the mindset. And I did a bunch of research on other products, and I'm still transitioning because since I made those giant bulk investments early on, I'm still running through a lot of my packaging material because it doesn't make sense to just toss it. Once all of those are used, that I'm moving into another product that I think will probably be better for my practice. but I reuse a lot of the things that are coming in. The boxes that things are coming in, I'm totally reusing those. There's a lot of the plastic bags. If I can reuse a plastic bag, doggone it, I'm going to. The airtight, the zipper bags, things like that. Those are fantastic to reuse. I've got a whole big box of packaged peanuts and those little air things, like everything out. It is out in the garage area, and I save them so that I can reuse them. Everything else gets recycled as best I can, but every little bit helps.
Yes, and reuse is really where it's at. So
Mhm.
that's great, more so than recycling. I mean, recycling is important, but reuse is really even more important. And so, what about water? Because dyeing requires a lot of heat and it also requires a lot of water. And then there's wastewater, obviously, when you're in that dyeing process. And so, I don't actually know a whole lot about how to handle all of that. I've never been a dyer. I've just done some like home tie-dye projects. But so tell us a little bit about once you do have kind of a business that's at scale and is, you're selling products to wholesale to retail shops and things like that, and you have a lot of production going on. What is the water situation like?
Oh my goodness, you are so correct. And that was one of the things where, I'm trying to do better and I'm watching all of this water go in the drain. I'm like, what am I doing? So I set up a water collection system, and I watched a ton of videos and got all of these really great ideas. And I researched that we can save 110 gallons of water here in the Denver metro area for use and reuse. And I was I was set up. I was really thinking I was going to be doing great. And then we didn't get any rain. So I have this big barrel and I have everything set up to come from the roof into this big collection. I could transfer all of the water, and it wasn't filling with water. So I changed gears real fast to water reuse. And man, am I glad I did, because that has come in handy far more than I ever would have realized early on. So I reuse those waters as many times as possible, whether it be in a citric acid bath for the yarns that can go into a dye pan, or reusing the dye water, or I have a holding cabinet so I can collect water from the bottom of there. And all of those waters are completely clear. I have everything calculated really well that I don't have a lot of residual dye in my water. So I just keep using and using and using until they're finally exhausted. And then I call them my pollinator parcels. They're garden beds. They're Colorado themed garden beds, and they're raised garden beds. And I can put all of those exhausted waters into there because we keep bees. So I just expanded. I had 3 garden beds. This year I'm going to have 6 garden beds, and I'm thrilled. So I can start to shift all of the water into those garden beds.
That is super inspiring and very cool. I think that, um, yeah, the way that you're reusing the water and then putting it into the garden is amazing. So that's awesome. And I know you also did a partnership, I think, with an organization that works with planting trees. So tell us a little bit about that as well.
Oh, heck yeah. This group has been fantastic. I am so excited to work with them this year. So I was thinking more this year, there's always ways to do better. There's always going to be improvement, and having the flexibility to improve in all of those areas is ideal. But I started to question, what else can I do? What can I do? Where do I see another area? And I thought, oh, what about planting trees? We could have like an offset project. And so this year I've partnered with the Colorado Tree Coalition. They have been wonderful in brainstorming and working together. And I really, really favor this group because of their educational component with our community. Not only do they work to plant trees to increase the tree canopy within the Denver metro area, and there's a replant project from our recent Marshall fire, but they also have really fantastic educational programs that help people understand what types of trees to plant where and at what stage, so that they can have a very successful plant, rather than, some of the other programs that don't offer as much information. And then people the more we know, the better. So that those educational components seem really, really important to me. And they're nice. I really like nice. So
So how does an offset program work? What does that mean?
So in my mindset is I know that there are some areas of my business that there's still plastic coming in. There are still things coming in that I might not be able to recycle, or uh, areas that could be better. So my mindset is, if I can do better this way, then it's going to be a big picture helping. Does that make sense?
Right. So it's almost like there's things you can't solve for or can't solve for yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a big picture way, you're contributing in other areas. And
Yes.
so with the sort of overall hope that the footprint you're making is reduced. So
Correct.
okay. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Okay. So tell us about the name Road Trip Sock Yarn. Where did that come from?
Oh my goodness. Well, it goes back to having ants in the pants all the time. I can't sit still in the car. There's no way. And so I was always working on something as a passenger. I'm always doing something, 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 something. And I love to do road trips. I love to go, but I can't sit in the car. So the sock yarn, I was toting little sock sacks with me everywhere, stitching up socks, working on a project, and road trip sock yarn came about. So road trip.
And do you ever worry about it being limited by that word sock? Like, that you can't necessarily expand to other types of yarn?
It's funny, it didn't occur to me until recently when I've had people say, well, do you do more than sock yarn? Well, yeah, I love all the yarns. I sure do. And maybe there will be some changes in the near future, but I could see that happening because the thought didn't cross my mind until recently when it was mentioned. So,
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the types of products that you have, and are you selling directly to consumers? Are you selling wholesale? So yeah, tell us about your product range and how you're selling it.
sure. So, like I said, I love all of the yarns. I also do roving for spinners, and that's a relatively newer item. But yeah, so I do all of the things. I have yarns in shops. I have yarns online. I have a website that is geared more towards wholesale, and then I use another online platform for individual sales, and it goes from lace weight all the way into the super chunky. And I feel like I have the best of all of the Keller worlds going on because I have the road trip style, which is very bright, bold, exciting, tons of speckles. Think all of those road trip adventures. And then I also do another line of yarn that is referred to as the Herd of Cats line. And those are all inspired by adoptable pets from Denver Dumb Friends League. And I donate the 10% of the sales profits to help those animals get adopted. So I have a beautiful palette of all of these neutrals in addition to all of those bright, bold colors.
That's super cool. All right, that's great, and I love that you're helping animals to get adopted too. That's wonderful. You really, I feel like, have solid values that help you when you run your business. And I think that sometimes we jump in and start a business and then have to take a moment to backtrack and say, well, what are the guiding values of this business? And I don't know whether you sort of set out with those values in the first place or over time have developed them, but I think it really helps with decision making when you know what those values are. Then when things happen in the world or locally, or you have a big decision to make about, taking on a new client or creating a new product, you know what your values are, and it helps you say yes or no, this aligns or this doesn't align.
Sure. Well, and the animal inspired yarns came very early in the dyeing, and I love animals. I love them so much, and I can't bring them all home. And I had to get creative with how I could be helpful, and that was my solution. I needed to be able to do something, and so those yarns, they started very early in the business, and it
That's
worked
great.
out. It worked out really well. I was like giving my idea, and by chance, the person who was helping me from the shelter, they were a knitter.
You never know. That's why I always say put your business in your email signature, right? So because if you just send an email, just as a regular person to a soccer coach or your kid's tutor or whoever it might be, you just don't know whether that person is also a crafter of some kind and may be, a new customer or have some other connection for you. So
Yeah,
it makes sense to just
yeah,
like share the news. This is what you're doing.
There's lots of crafty folks out there that really love to be part of the community. And, we all work so well together. We play nice. It's great.
Yes. And you're selling your products direct to consumer on Etsy. Is that right?
That's
So
correct.
how has that been for you? And what are you thinking at the moment about Etsy as a marketplace?
I like Etsy and for a lot of reasons. I'm small. I'm a one person in one small studio in Denver, Colorado, and that platform gives me an opportunity to reach a much larger audience than I might have an opportunity to in other ways. And I really favor it for that component. There are things that are quite challenging with it, but I think as long as I remember and stay focused on this is a way, there's a lot of people, it has a large audience, and so as long as I keep that in mind and at the forefront of my ideals in that context, I think I'm okay.
And you not only were obviously at H&H Americas to accept this award, but you actually had a booth at H&H Americas. So tell us a little bit about exhibiting at the trade show. It's an investment, both in time away from family, away from home, and away from business that you could be while you're home, since you work from home. It's also an investment as far as like financially getting a plane ticket and hotel and food and all the rest, plus the booth itself. So what made you decide to do it, and how has that been for you going to H&H?
Oh my gosh, it absolutely fantastic. Oh, well, it exceeded all of my hopes in every context. I went in, and I think because of those investments, we have goals that we set for ourselves that, we really hope to achieve by participating and attending an event like this. It's it has been fantastic the whole way around. The people that come to an event like that, we all want to be there. We're all happy to be there. We're happy to meet each other. We're happy to see one another. We're happy to connect. And the positive energy in that space is remarkable. And I've had such a fantastic time. I can't wait for next year.
That's great. And how many years have you exhibited? The show's been going on for 3 years in the US.
So this is my second year attending, and I attended with the India Entangled Pavilion. So
Okay. So for folks who don't know what that is, it's basically, it's actually really cool. It's very centrally located, so you're not off in like a corner, and it's really meant for smaller brands, maybe newer to wholesale. And you get a small booth, and it's an affordable price, and it's actually great for retailers because it's for discovery. Like all these smaller, maybe newcomers on the scene are all together in these smaller booths, and you can kind of walk all the way around and very quickly take in 20 or whatever it might be, new to you brands.
Yeah, and we're all friends, so it's a great dynamic within the group as well. So it's
Right.
awesome.
Yeah. So I would definitely encourage folks who are listening and are like, oh, I want to do this, but I don't have, several $1,000s to invest. But this is a way to get to the show, exhibit at the show, and still keep your costs down. And also there's a lot of nice attention to that area. It's got this big, I don't know what they call that. It's like a chandelier or something that like hangs overhead and kind of demarks where it is, so people know where to go. And I think there's great buzz there. Plus, as you said, you meet other people. Like if you have to run to the bathroom or whatever, you meet people who are there kind of in the same boat as you are, but they might be in embroidery or in sewing or kits or whatever it might be.
Well, and the vibe of the entire place, it's busy. It's happening in the India Tangle Pavilion. I can speak because that's where I spend most of my time. But oh my goodness, the place is just buzzing with excitement for the craft industry, and it is so wonderful to have that experience, and just the dynamic and being around our community is great. They have it really well marked. There's a lot of people, but there's great signage, there's maps, there's tons of people that can help, and everyone is willing to help. So that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so tell us about some future plans. What is on your horizon? We're coming into the summer. So what is up with you and with Road Trip Sock Yarn over maybe the next couple of months?
Well, it's road trip season.
Right.
It is time. It is time to pack the car and get a move on. I met a ton of really fantastic people at H&H. And so I am working through a lot of new stores, and I will be posting on my Instagram when you're road tripping where you can find some road trip yarns. So there will be a list for all of the shops that I currently work with. And then as the summer progresses, as all of these orders continue to go out, then I'm going to be introducing those shops as well. So while you're traveling, you can go and find some fun yarns. I am going to be, well, I've got a show in the fall. Usually because I have a little one. I have a young creative 6-year-old who's at school right now, which is why we can do this. But I do one show in the spring and one show in the fall. So all of the other things that I do are either local or they are for wholesale accounts. So but we've got some fun road trips coming. When I do a trip or when I do a show, we stop at shops the whole route because it's a whole lot easier when you're 6 years old to drive for 3 hours and then hang out at a shop for a couple hours and then drive for a few more hours. So that's how we break up our road trips.
Right. Your child is going to be so versed in the yarn world by the time they become a teenager.
Yeah,
That's
I
awesome.
often laugh and be like, man, kid, you are so comfortable in yarn shops. It's so silly.
It's a good place to be comfortable.
Yeah.
So, okay, that sounds awesome. So if there's retailers listening who want to place a wholesale order or consumers listening who want to come check out your yarns, where should they go?
So you're more than welcome. Anyone who has any questions, and I am happy to chat about fiber goodness all the time, please do not hesitate to reach out on my email at roadtripsockyarn@gmail.com. I'm on Etsy as Road Trip Sock Yarn. And then my wholesale website is specifically for wholesale orders. Although if you want to do wholesale, we oftentimes have to talk about colors because I custom dye for each and every location. So you're welcome to send me an email so that we can select colors and kind of come up with a plan and all of the fun touristy things in your area that we can work with.
That's awesome. So that those retailers are really getting something that's unique to them. And so when you were saying about going on a road trip and finding all of the retailers that carry your yarns, you're not seeing the same road trip sock yarn from retailer to retailer.
No, you will likely never see the same yarns twice. Each and every shop has their own collection. And for the shops that I worked with for several years now, we have a spring and a fall collection. So we'll launch something fun early on and then something fun a little later in the season as well.
I love that because it really supports the local retailers by giving them a unique product that you can't get anywhere else. So it really brings people into the store, and that's what it's all about for local retailers. So I think that that's wonderful, the symbiosis between an indie dyer and the retail shop. Yeah.
And it's fun, I always tell them souvenir skeins don't count as stash. You can go and pick up a souvenir skein and it's going to be great because that's your souvenir.
Absolutely. And the best kind of craft supplies are the best kind of souvenir in my mind. So yeah, absolutely. Because then you get home, you have the memory, and also whatever you make from it is then part of that memory. So it's the best. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Allie. This has been wonderful. Congratulations on winning the Golden Scissors Award for Sustainability this year. We are just so proud of you and excited to share your story with everyone. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this more than you realize, probably. Thank you.
Bye, Allie.
Bye.
Thank you to our award winners for sharing their stories today. And thanks again to our award sponsors, Spoonflower, Jimmy Bean's Wool, Universal Yarn, and Famore. And you've been listening to the Craft Industry Alliance podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Craft Industry Alliance is a community for craft professionals. When you become a member of Craft Industry Alliance, you get in-depth coverage of craft industry news, the opportunity to connect with fellow professionals for advice and support, and access to an educational library filled with ideas, tools, and resources to help you as you build your business. Join us at craftindustrｙalliance.org. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.